In the previous video, we explored Blizzard's ascent to becoming one of the most successful PC game developers of our time. If you haven't watched it yet, I strongly recommend you do so before continuing with this one. This will provide you with a more comprehensive understanding of the story from its very beginning. In 2005, Blizzard became innovative in a whole new way by creating a large-scale, dedicated convention focused on its own games and community. This event, known as BlizzCon, marked a significant milestone for the company and the gaming industry. The main focus was on the company's new projects, announcements, and developer panels, where game designs, lore, and future plans were discussed. In addition, BlizzCon featured tournaments with prize pools, starting with Warcraft 3 and Starcraft, and later expanding to include other games in Blizzard's portfolio. These tournaments showcased top-tier competitive play and attracted a large audience of eSports enthusiasts. Moreover, community events were also a highlight of BlizzCon. Activities such as cosplay contests, art exhibits, and QA sessions with Blizzard developers created an engaging and interactive environment for attendees. Memorable questions were asked during these sessions, which sparked interesting discussions and provided deeper insights into Blizzard's games. For many fans, these elements combined to make BlizzCon not just a convention, but a celebration of the Blizzard's community and its shared passion for gaming. With time, the event showed how in touch or out of touch eventually Blizzard executives had come with their player base. We cannot talk about Blizzard without mentioning its step-sister Activision. Activision was founded in 1979 by a third-party gaming developer on the Atari video computer system. 9 years later, the company tried to expand into non-gaming software. However, this venture wasn't successful and the company suffered heavy losses. In 1991, a group of investors led by none other than Robert A. Kotick bought the company. Kotick instituted large restructuring, reducing debt. In 1997, the company was back to being profitable. Over the next decade, Kotick expanded Activision through numerous acquisitions, leading to successful game series like Tony Hawk's, Call of Duty, and Guitar Hero. However, by around 2006, the popularity of massively multiplayer online games started to grow. Such games provided a constant revenue stream to their publishers rather than only a single purchase, making them a more lucrative proposition. None of Activision's subsidiaries had an MMO or the ability to make one quickly. Activision was also facing tougher competition from companies like Electronic Arts, as well as slowdown in sales of their key game series. Around 2006, Bobby Kotick approached Vivendi's CEO, seeking access to Blizzard's successful MMO World of Warcraft. Instead, the CEO of Vivendi proposed merging with Activision, with Vivendi retaining majority control. Initially hesitant due to potential loss of control, Kotick recognized then the opportunity for expansion, especially in China, after discussions with Blizzard CEO Mike Morhaime. The merger proposal was accepted by Activision's board in December 2007, forming Activision-Blizzard with Kotick as CEO. The European Commission approved the merger in April 2008 and it was finalized on July 9th for approximately $18.9 billion. While Blizzard retained its autonomy and corporate leadership in the merger, other Vivendi games divisions such as Sierra weren't as lucky and had to cease operation. With the merger, Kotick was quoted stating, "If a Sierra product did not meet Activision's requirements, they won't likely be retained." There was a significant game release gap between 2005 and 2010. From 94 to 04, Blizzard had released 9 standalone games and 4 expansions. However, from 2005 to mid-2010, they released 0 standalone games and only 2 expansions. First, we already know one reason for the lack of games is Blizzard North's disbandment. Another major reason was that their primary focus was on World of Warcraft, evident by the expansions released during that period. For those 5 to 6 years, Blizzard was synonymous with one title, World of Warcraft. It outshined all their previous titles. In addition, a console game called Starcraft Ghost was announced in 2002.
The way of the warrior is the path of shadow. The gift of the warrior is to perceive that which cannot be seen. The spirit of the warrior is to strike in a single moment. The destiny of the warrior is balance in all things. And when balance is lost, all that is left is the reckoning.
It was meant to mark Blizzard's significant return to the console market. Unfortunately for many fans, the project was postponed indefinitely. Its cancellation was eventually confirmed by CEO Michael Morhaime in 2014. While the merger between Blizzard and Activision was happening, a major worldwide event was unfolding that would disrupt the money flow. The global financial crisis was a severely negative economic event that occurred in the late 2000s. Activision-Blizzard stock plummeted nearly 60% from its all-time highs. The effects of the GFC were taking a toll on everything, and even though World of Warcraft was a humongous success, the uncertainty of global picture was too worrisome for investors. Money was flowing out of risk-on assets into more conservative ones. We have to agree that a gaming company in 2008 wasn't synonymous with a safe haven, so it made sense at the time. Logically, Blizzard needed to boost revenue and profits even further, so they released an in-game digital store where additional microtransactions were added over time. Keep in mind, this was already on top of a monthly subscription-based game for which you needed to buy the base game along with 2 expansions. World of Warcraft was milking its customers on 3 major fronts. This made World of Warcraft a literal golden goose. The level of greed to which the executives and shareholders were exposed and still are to this day was immense. Their expectations back then grew exponentially given Blizzard's expanding revenue stream. In 2009, Bobby Kotick, the fresh CEO of Activision-Blizzard, became infamous for a controversial statement he made during a Deutsche Bank Securities Technology conference in San Francisco. This philosophy showcased his leadership style clearly. Take all the fun out of making video games. I think we definitely have been able to instill the culture, the skepticism, and pessimism and fear that you should have in an economy like we are in today. And so, while generally people talk about the recession, we are pretty good at keeping people focused on a deep depression. Bobby Kotick's endorsement of a corporate culture based on skepticism, pessimism, and fear is counterintuitive and paradoxical, given that a gaming company needs creativity, new ideas, and innovation to make a good product. The former do not align well with the latter, for obvious reasons. With enough context, here's the summary of the 4 arguments why I think the Blizzard's golden age lasted about 10 years from 1994-95-ish to 2004-05-ish. The first reason is the disassembly of Blizzard North and cancellation of the 2 games they were working on. Activision-Blizzard merger, which would prove to be lethal for the game quality later on. Game release drought and WoW as the perceived sole priority undermining other franchises. Fourth one is the great financial crisis, which happened at the time. In my opinion, these 4 things combined did significant damage to Blizzard later on, and the ripple effects are felt by them to this very day. with many questionable decisions to follow in the coming years. In 2010, Blizzard made a very controversial announcement concerning their Battle.net forum. In short, Blizzard were having problems with trolling on their forums, so they decided that they would want to enforce people to post using their real ID. In their mind, removing anonymity would have reduced flame wars, trolling, and other disruptive behavior. However, numerous forum users expressed fears of stalking, account theft, and personal safety, highlighting that they sign up with the expectation of anonymity. People were fearful of the potential consequences the decision might have. In addition, they play games, especially MMOs, to emerge into a new, different world, forget and detach from their real lives. Exposing freely the connection between their WoW character, name, and real life would have negative effect on that. Not long after, Blizzard abandoned its controversial plan. Users would post using their Battle.net character names and codes. While the ID forum drama took a positive turn, people definitely had a glimpse of what potential big mess Blizzard could willingly get themselves into. Damage has been done. A concern had risen. Why were they going to implement such a thing in the first place? Whoever proposed and approved that either didn't think of the consequences or did it anyways knowingly. We'll never know which one, but that whole situation had definitely worried some people, and rightfully so. The release of Starcraft 2 was long awaited, with 12 years passing since Brood War and over 5 years since Blizzard's last new game. It was a monumental event for fans of real-time strategy games. Starcraft 2 can be credited as one of the titles that brought eSports into mainstream recognition worldwide, much like its predecessor did for Korea. However, Blizzard's emphasis on multiplayer aspects somewhat overshadowed other essential features that had attracted a casual audience to their previous games, such as the arcade and custom game section. Additionally, the game lacked chat functionality upon release. To put it mildly, the release felt somewhat premature, lacking the signature Blizzard polish, despite its lengthy development period. It's possible the game was slightly rushed. However, it has since undergone significant improvements, and StarCraft 2 now boasts a variety of well-crafted features. The game received 2 expansions, Heart of the Swarm in 2013 and Legacy of the Void in 2015, which continued the campaign story, enhanced unit abilities, and introduced new units to the multiplayer experience. StarCraft 2 faced challenges over the years, notably during the Broodlord Investor era in 2012, when the game balance issues persisted for 6 months without resolution from Blizzard until the next expansion. Many players migrated to other games like League of Legends and Valve's Dota 2, impacting StarCraft 2 player base and its presence in the eSports scene. Despite being mocked as a dead game since 2012, a tweet from Total Biscuit's account in 2017 revealed a still healthy monthly user base of about 2 million players. However, the professional scene has diminished with declining viewership on gaming platforms like Twitch. It's disheartening to see the game, which played a significant role in the establishment of Twitch, struggle to maintain its viewership. This decline may be attributed to Blizzard's decision to halt further development on the game. The Korean scene, once vibrant, now hangs on life support. The revelation and subsequent proof of match-fixing allegation against one of the top players live, along with similar scandals involving other players, severely impacted the Korean scene. The discontinuation of the Pro League in 2016 dealt a further blow to the Korean SC2 professional teams. In 2024, StarCraft 2 still hosts premier and major tournaments, with prize pools totaling $1 or $2 million annually, mostly coming from ESL, sustaining a select group of the very top professional players. However, it pales in comparison to its peak popularity. The decline in the game's esports scene is evident, and Blizzard seems either clueless about how to address it or unwilling to do so for years. SC2 was my main and only game for about 7 long years. I like to express my strong opinion of Blizzard being notoriously incapable of properly running, growing, preserving and balancing an eSport title and scene. They were too slow with implementing changes. They let the game be in a bad state for long periods of time. As remarkable as their games have been, their actual ability to maintain and manage an esports scene is lackluster. We could see many examples of this, and you can ask many Starcraft pros about their opinion on the subject. For contrast, League of Legends, a single game, grew and maintained a bigger audience than the entirety of Blizzard esports added together. Blizzard, a AAA behemoth who has the privilege of tremendous success for over a decade, having thousands of employees and being worth tens of billions of dollars, yet it lets its reputation be ruined because of the atrocious corporate greed and shareholder ass-licking chasing quarterly revenue highs and eroding long-term franchise growth and sustainability. An empty vessel of a formal PC game gold standard settler, but I digress. Moving on. Blizzard Entertainment, renowned for creating some of the most iconic games in history, notably missed an enormous opportunity with the DOTA and its subsequent late entry into the mobile genre. This misstep is particularly striking given Blizzard's historical position as a trendsetter in the gaming industry. The origins of DOTA, a mode for Blizzard's own game Warcraft 3, made this oversight even more ironic and significant. Standalone Dota 2 game was up for grabs, with games designer IceFrog reaching out to Blizzard first, but they pushed the idea aside and it did cost them dearly in retrospect. Blizzard former chief creator officer Rob Pardo, in a podcast from October 2014, a couple of months after leaving Blizzard, has been sharing some key details on Dota.
No, I'd be interested to hear what your thoughts are about MOBAs in general. I remember when we first met, which was, I guess, probably around 2006, one of the first things you told me is I should download this mod called Defense of the Ancients for Warcraft 3 and check it out. So you guys were obviously very aware of what was going on with it. Why was there not a Blizzard MOBA started back then?
I mean, honestly, it's just development bandwidth.
Yeah.
I mean, like you said, we were aware of it. We knew it was getting really popular. I actually did have kind of an official sit-down meeting with the other kind of execs of the studio and said, hey, we should really talk about this. And we walked down the path and talked about what it would take. And we also actually brought IceFrog out and talked to him a bit too. And we just... made the decision that we just didn't feel like we could take it on and make it successful at the time. The
timing was pretty bad in the sense that you guys were still dealing with World of Warcraft and had been starting the next versions of your huge other...
Starcraft 2 was already a couple years down the path.
Diablo 3 was...
Yeah, and that was another thing that was getting ready to happen too. We were ready to bring Diablo 3 down to Irvine, and it just didn't feel like at that time we could do a Blizzard job on a Dota game.
Yeah, it would be a major risk.
Yeah.
Right.
By failing to recognize and capitalize on the potential of early on, Blizzard ceded ground to competitors who would go on to dominate the genre. The late release of Heroes of the Storm could not recapture the momentum, leading to missed financial opportunities and a tarnished reputation for innovation. This episode serves as a cautionary tale of how even the most successful companies must continually adapt and anticipate trends to maintain their leadership in a fast-evolving industry. An article from PC Games from 2019, co-founder and CEO Mike Morhaime said, "One of my regrets is that we didn't pursue Dota early enough. Frankly, we had our hands full trying to support the growth of World of Warcraft. We felt like focusing on Warcraft was the right call at the time. If I could go back in time and say, why don't we have a small team that's focused on doing something with Dota? I'd love to try doing that a little bit earlier. The mod could have been included alongside Starcraft 2. He also confirms that the eventual release of their MOBA game was, quote, probably too late. Diablo 3 introduced an in-game auction house system that allowed players to buy and sell items using real or in-game currency. This system received heavy criticism for various reasons. It affected the game's economy, as the best items were often only available through the auction house, leading to imbalance and lack of satisfaction in finding gear through gameplay. Additionally, the real money auction house was seen as a potential avenue for pay-to-win mechanics, which frustrated players who preferred a more skill-based progression system. Loot system and itemization. Diablo games are known for their loot-driven gameplay, where finding powerful items is a core part of the experience. However, Diablo 3's loot system at launch faced widespread criticism. Drop rates for rare and powerful items were low, and the random itemization often led to players receiving items that were not suited for their character. This resulted in a lack of excitement and satisfaction when acquiring loot, and the endgame item grind became monotone. Diablo 3 game content was seen as lacking depth and longevity. The initial release had limited activities beyond completing the main story and repeating the same few dungeons. This lack of variety and meaningful endgame goals caused many players to lose interest once they finished the campaign. Diablo 3's highest difficulty level, Inferno, was extremely challenging and imbalanced upon release. Players felt that the difficulty spike was too steep and unfair, which led to frustration and lack of progression. The game required extensive gear grinding to progress, making it inaccessible and unenjoyable for many players. Blizzard's communication with the player base during Diablo 3's troubled launch was perceived as inadequate. The company was slow to address and fix the issues players were facing, leading to frustration and a sense of abandonment. Patches and updates to address the game's problems were delayed, exacerbating player dissatisfaction. 2013, with Reaper of Souls, the next Diablo 3 expansion, a lot of the problems have been addressed, but the core problem had put a dent into Blizzard's reputation. For a second time, they had released unpolished product and took their sweet time and extra money after a paid expansion before fixing those issues. A post summarized pretty well a variety of problems that Diablo 3 had. Remember what happened in 2005? It's ironic to know that the official reason given for Blizzard North's disassembly was, quote, didn't meet Vivendi's expectations. Yet years later, Blizzard still released a flawed product. At this point, we start seeing some reoccurring patterns with problems in game design, game balance, and delaying patches to address those issues. The very same problems StarCraft 2 had been facing through almost its entire lifespan. Something had definitely changed inside Blizzard, and it wasn't for good. If you're interested in a more broad and in-depth look at the development story of Diablo 3, I strongly recommend watching this video from Indigo Gaming YouTube channel called A Cautionary Tale: 12 Years of Development Hell.
Jay Wilson lamented the auction house years after he left Blizzard. The problem is, of course, it over-legitimized trading. It made it too easy. I think we all know this by now, and the consequences. We worried about these consequences ahead of time, but we thought the benefits would outweigh the downsides. And WoW's auction house seemed like a good proof of concept. Obviously, we were mistaken.
The problem wasn't that people didn't want to use it. The problem was that nearly every Diablo 3 vanilla player used the auction house at least once. Auctions became a way to bypass the stingy loot system, or to make a quick buck from items that your main class couldn't use. Blizzard didn't predict the overwhelming demand, and some players took advantage of this feature, turning the game into a play-to-earn scheme. One seller shared his PayPal statement, proving that he made $10,000 selling in-game gear. This was a peek into the new and exciting world of digital speculation, and the naive, early cryptocurrency, pre-NFT innocence of 2012. Even if you never paid real money, you could save up gold to get gear too time-consuming to grind for at your level. These tantalizing items, just a few clicks away inside a built-in feature, forever changed the dynamic of the game.
2013 wasn't the best year for Blizzard. In May, their secretive project Titan was cancelled after 7 years in development. The fallout from this decision reverberated throughout Blizzard's development team, evident in their own reactions. I'd like to share a different perspective, one that might not align with the views of die-hard Overwatch fans. But after researching into Blizzard's history, it's evident to me that Overwatch emerged from the remnants of a grandiose Titan project that ultimately failed, as acknowledged by Blizzard's executives. While Overwatch brought immense success to the company, it came at a significant cost in terms of time, resources, and staff morale. Looking back, the inception of Project Titan in 2007 and the eventual release of Overwatch in 2016 spanned a staggering 9 years of development, a considerable investment. Moreover, the countless hours spent by developers on Titan only to see their work scrapped undoubtedly took a toll on staff motivation. Shareholders, including Bobby Kotick, likely weren't pleased with the squandered potential and the lost resources. This disappointment may have fueled Blizzard's determination to elevate Overwatch into the next eSport juggernaut, leading to substantial investments such as the acquisition of MLG and the construction of arenas across the US. Collectively, Blizzard had been doubling down on this vision for over a decade. Upon its release, Overwatch achieved success, but perhaps not to the extent envisioned during the early 2010s. There seemed to be a relentless push to make Overwatch more than it could be, akin to parents with unrealistic expectations for their children. Despite being good games, Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch couldn't match the legendary status of OG Warcraft, Starcraft, Diablo, and World of Warcraft. Accepting this reality has been challenging for Blizzard, as their past triumphs have clouded their approach, leading to questionable decisions. Ironically, some of Blizzard's decisions hindered their quest for newfound success. For instance, they missed an opportunity in the early 2010s to capitalize on the MOBA genre, potentially rivaling League of Legends and preventing the rise of DOTA. It appears that Blizzard was determined to turn their missteps into victories. This drive explains their fervent promotion of Overwatch as a major esports title despite its challenges. However, Overwatch scene faced hurdles sustaining viewer engagement and viewer experience.
And what are the different ways that, we can make our games last as long as possible, and esports is a really good example of a way to do that.
So what are the design aesthetics of like the perfect esport game?
I think the easier way to talk about it is you just talk about other competitions in sports and which things are good. There's certain sports and certain competitions that televise really well, and there's certain ones that don't, right? And I think that's kind of where you start. It's the problem I think with most of the esports right now is unless you already have played the game quite a bit, I don't feel like it's easy to really get in and start watching and understand what's happening.
Sure.
And that's just because the games are really complex and they aren't really conducive to that. I think that's one of the things really interesting watching Hearthstone, which was not designed to be an esport, but strangely enough is very popular on Twitch. And I think that's one of the reasons, because it is such a simple game and it's so easy to follow. Like, it doesn't demand that you have a tremendous amount of deep knowledge of the game to understand what's happening, like I think League of Legends or Starcraft 2 does.
Yeah.
During this period, Blizzard's focus on RTS, RPG, and MMORPG, where their traditional strengths lied, was unfortunately neglected. This deterioration was predominantly evident in Warlords of Draenor expansion, where attention being derived away from it was obvious for many players. In hindsight, the impact of Project Titan on Blizzard's franchise was profound. It's plausible that this diversion of resources played a role in Blizzard's decision-making process, possibly also contributing to their delayed entry into the MOBA market and their other franchises. In 2014, Blizzard experienced slight resurgence as their new game called Hearthstone turned out to be a fun one and was well received by both critics and gamers. It is similar to Magic the Gathering, but with a Warcraft spin on it, and simpler for new players. The game seemed casual and fun, with a sheer bit of luck involved, yet it had some strategic depth into it, from crafting your own deck to playing it correctly and deciding whether you want to play for board control or deal direct damage to your opponent's face, which would deliver a quicker victory but at a momentum cost. Many hardcore fans of Blizzard didn't initially respect Hearthstone as it seemed too casual to them, but it amassed a huge following, rapidly reaching 100 million users after it was published into the mobile gaming market later. In retrospect, what I liked about it is that I could feel that old Blizzard spirit of getting into a game genre and innovating in it with their own spin of it. Combined with the vibrant and alluring universe of Warcraft, it's no wonder it became a success. Unfortunately, Blizzard at the time was under the ever-rising influence of shareholders and Bobby Kotick as CEO, so the monetization scheme of the game became atrociously greedy and disrespectful towards players, as it forced constant buying of card packs in order to stay relevant with the meta, and new expansions which came out multiple times per year. In total, Hearthstone has 31 expansions for its 10-year lifespan, quite a number bigger than all their other games' expansions combined. Ironically, at BlizzCon the same year, during a Q&A section, Blizzard higher-ups didn't disappoint in showcasing their detachment from their fans.
Have you ever thought about adding servers for previous expansions as they were then?
No. And by the way, you don't want to do that either. You think you do, but you don't. Remember when you had to like spam cities and say need a tank, need a tank, need a tank during the Burning Crusade days? You don't remember that because now you just push a button that says go to the dungeon. You don't want to do that. Remember that one bug that really pissed you off that we fixed like 2 years ago? Still there in the past.
Their indulgent and patronizing attitude was striking, considering their presence there was due to the very people they were mocking. Thanks to those fans, they had jobs, yet they showed blatant disrespect. By that point, Blizzard had distanced themselves so far from their player base that it was only a matter of time before things got much worse. Their faultless attitude and arrogance, believing they could do no wrong, had taken over. They were no longer serving their customers, but catering to their own self-centered greed at the expense of their loyal fans.
Behold the absolute power of Wilfred Fizzlebang, Master Summoner! You are bound to me, demon.
Trifling gnome! Your arrogance will be your undoing!
But I'm in charge here!
This concludes the slow decline of Blizzard. Sadly, from this point onwards, things start accelerating for the worse, and Blizzard's reputation takes major hits over and over again, almost every following year.